Welcome to the Mom Needs a Moment podcast. We're your hosts, Chrissy
and Cindy,
co-founders of HER Health Collective.
We are two moms obsessed with revolutionizing the way moms take care of themselves. We are so glad you're here. Let's dive in. Each of the experts that are represented in our roundtables have different professional backgrounds and specialties. That's what makes this so unique. When they come together and discuss women's health, you can expect to get different perspectives based on their area of focus. This is also a time for the experts to collaborate with professionals from other industries in order to create a more holistic model of care for women. Our goal, HER Health Collective, is to expand not only the experts' referral network, but to emphasize the importance of collaborative health care. So we are really excited to welcome all of the individuals that are here today. We're going to take a few moments now to go ahead and have our experts that are represented here at this roundtable to introduce themselves. This is an opportunity for them to share what their expertise is and for our listeners to have a better idea of who's speaking during the upcoming conversation. So I'm just going to go ahead across my screen. So stay on your toes because you probably won't know when I'm going to ask you to speak. But the first person on my screen is Jessica.
Hi, good morning, everybody. I'm so glad to be here. I am Jessica Shields. I am a licensed educational psychologist here in California, also a school psychologist. And I love working with parents, educating them on how to navigate the school system to better support their child, especially if your child has a learning disability or even is struggling with the self-esteem or self-confidence. So that's my area of expertise with my experience of 20 plus years in education. So I'm happy to be here. And also, I just want to say I am happily married for 21 and a half years. Can you believe that?
Yay, that's so great. I love hearing that. That's wonderful. Yes. Veronica, can you jump on?
Yes. Good morning, everyone. This is Veronica Kemeny. I'm a licensed clinical social worker here in North Carolina. I am one of the founders of Anchor Perinatal Wellness, which is based in Raleigh. We are a mental health facility that has free walk-in screenings for moms who are struggling with mood symptoms. We have outpatient therapy, and we have what is called an intensive outpatient therapy program for folks who are needing more stabilization of their mental health symptoms. We are really excited to be a part of this panel and to be a part of solving and creating systems of care for moms who are struggling with mood symptoms, which are really common during this period in time.
Erin, I'm going to pop down to you.
Hi, I'm Erin Baute. I am a behavior and business strategist, and I use the power of personality to help folks make lasting behavior change. But I am really excited about this conversation because I started out my career within the context of community behavior change under the guise of women's sexual health. So I spent the first 10 years of my career as a certified health educator and a women's sexual health educator. So it was really fun preparing for this talk to dig into some of my, what felt like old passions that are very, very still alive.
Kyrsten.
So my name is Kyrsten Spurrier, and I'm the owner of the Perinatal Pelvis in Hillsborough, North Carolina, where I provide pelvic floor and maternal wellness services, and really working with new moms, mostly with trying to get them strong, confident, and functional in their bodies, and having the motherhood that they desire.
Maris, hi.
Hello. Thanks so much for having me this morning. I'm Maris Feeley. I am a full spectrum doula, co-owner and director of Carolina Birth and Wellness, which is a holistic resource center supporting families at every step of their reproductive health journey. It's wonderful to witness and hold space for families, whether they are having a fertility journey, expecting a little one, immediately postpartum, or just looking at growing their family more into the future. I myself am only a dog mom at the time, but I've been with my now husband for 12 years, sum total 5 years married. And we met at summer camp at 16. So it's definitely been
oh my gosh.
An evolution and a journey.
You've grown together. Catherine, good to see you.
Hi, Good to see you. I'm Catherine Andrew. I'm a registered dietitian out of Raleigh, North Carolina, although I see clients all over the country. And I focus in digestion and hormone health, which obviously both affect marriage and relationships. I have been very happily married for 18 years now and have 3 kids.
Thank you all so much.
Speaking of alone time, we know that a key component of a strong, intimate relationship is intimacy. As I was looking at this idea of intimacy, I came across this idea of there actually being 4 different types of intimacy that come into play in a relationship. There's emotional intimacy, physical intimacy, which is what I was originally thinking of, mental intimacy, and intellectual intimacy. According to Gloria Lopez Enriquez, a doctor of social work and faculty member at the Ackerman Institute for the Family in New York City, if a relationship has an equal power dynamic, intimacy becomes easier to cultivate. However, getting intimate with someone else on one level, on one of those aspects, doesn't necessarily guarantee intimacy in other aspects. So just a very quick summary of what we mean by each of these types of intimacy. Physical intimacy is what you would think of. It's body closeness, hugging, cuddling, kissing, holding hands, and all the other things. Being emotionally intimate means being transparent with our deepest feelings, our fears, our thoughts, being honest and upfront about what we're feeling on the inside. Mental intimacy refers to sharing your ideas, opinions, and life perspectives. It may also involve intellectually challenging each other, which I think is important to note. You don't always have to see eye to eye, but you're willing to engage in those conversations. And then spiritual intimacy means feeling close, validated, and safe, sharing your innermost ideas and beliefs on life's purpose and your connection with divine energies. Not all relationships will involve all of those types of intimacy, but those are the most common types that we see people will share. I'd love to hear your thoughts. How important is it for the success of a long-term relationship to have multiple types of intimacy? Are there certain types that you think are more important than others? Do you see perhaps a lack of one of those types of intimacy causing more struggle than others? And if so, if there is a certain area that is very important and a couple is struggling with that, what can they do? How can a couple increase intimacy in one of those key areas?
Really fast before the nitty-gritty, I'm just so in love with this question because as a sexual health educator, the idea that intimacy is sex, right? And how inaccessible sex may be to a disabled body or to somebody who's not interested or asexual. And I just love the inclusivity of this question, and I'm super excited.
I was going to say with my patients, a lot of my patients come in with this idea of intimacy only being the physical intimacy. And I really do work with a lot of my patients of being like, let's explore different ways to be intimate. And you might be able to then get that same satisfaction when your physical intimacy maybe is not where you want it to be right now. That doesn't mean that we lose all connection with our partner. And so exploring that, because I feel like society doesn't do a really good job at showing the other types of intimacy. And I see that in my patients if they just haven't even explored other ways to be intimate with their partner.
I also agree with what was said. I am glad that this was mentioned as well, because again, like everyone said, intimacy isn't just physical, because if you think about it, if you're not in the right mindset, you don't want to be physical. Your mindset, your emotional state needs to be in check. You have to have your emotional feelings and your being in that mood to want to be even physical. So I think it's so important to make sure that you're connecting on that emotional level, especially in that spiritual level, so that your mindset can be ready for when you want to connect on a physical level. You hear about people who aren't intimate because they're not getting along, or, they're kind of having a fight, or, if I'm mad at you, I don't want to have sex, right? So it's important to just work on those things and continue to connect. And I have to say that for me, my husband is my absolute best friend. Like, he's my number one best friend. And you don't just get to that point. You work to that point by opening yourself up and having those conversations and understanding each other and your deepest feelings or passions or desires, and always just connecting and finding a way to connect, especially after you put the kids to bed. Then you get to really just be in those moments wherever you are, just being together and just talking. So again, for me, that's number one. The emotional and the spiritual piece go hand in hand.
This episode of Mama Needs a Moment is sponsored by Camp Gladiator. Camp Gladiator is a health and fitness platform for all ages and fitness levels. They provide workouts that are designed and trained by certified personal trainers, whether that is through their outdoor fitness platform, live online workouts, or through their on-demand library. They also have certified nutrition coaches and registered dietitians who offer nutrition coaching.
I love working out with Camp Gladiator and have been for almost a year now. I think one of the things I love most is the positive environment and community that not only works out together, but also becomes a family outside of camp while supporting and giving back to the community. CG members can participate in an unlimited number of workouts each month, and the super fun outdoor workouts include dumbbells along with other fitness toys, which are my favorite, the balls, the bands, the ropes, the fire hoses, so much fun. And the virtual workouts use dumbbells and other things that can be easily found around your home.
Camp Gladiator members have a primary trainer that will keep you motivated, accountable, and will be there to do all they can to help you get the most out of your fitness journey.
CG is also great for moms. I can't remember how many camps I've been to where I've seen moms with their children in tow, whether in a carrier, a stroller. Plus, you'll see older children working out alongside their parent, which is always awesome to see. Sometimes they even use their children as an extra weight or just to bring them into the movements because they want to.
They have an amazing number of workouts that are offered all throughout the day. You can catch outdoor and live online workouts from 5 a.m. until 10 p.m. And the on-demand ones are available 24 hours a day. Anyone can join Camp Gladiator for a full week of free workouts. Get your free week using the link in the show notes.
Yeah, I would add, I think there is no type of intimacy that is more important than others. I think ultimately it's going to very much differ by person and by relationship. And so I think going inwards and, I do a lot of values work based in like acceptance and commitment therapy in my therapy with clients, and understanding what is going to make you fulfilled and then what's going to make your partner fulfilled. And then where do those overlap? Where do they butt heads? And understanding that, again, the priority of knowing that my priority is focusing on, I'm holding the awareness of what my partner needs as well as they are holding mine. And that it isn't, again, your responsibility to just be charging through for your needs, but that your partner's thinking of you as well. So there is no right or wrong answer. I think it's going to really look at some reflection of what makes me feel fulfilled. And then in terms of these types of intimacy, and let me have a conversation with my partner. And again, I think a lot of couples do not have that skill set. So it takes some assistance sometimes to really understand what does that vulnerability even look like of saying like, I think I need this, or I need more of this or less of this. I think from a sexual standpoint, but definitely with an underlying foundation of emotions, the book Come As You Are is fantastic to really talk about like, what are the things that are putting the brakes versus the accelerator in terms of even wanting physical connection, if that is a part of your relationship. But ultimately, there is no right or wrong answer. What works for you and what works for your partnership is most important.
I love that you said the word vulnerability, Veronica, because I think that's the seed planted in all these types of intimacy is how vulnerable can I be? And that is body-based work. We don't talk about that, right? We make it so heady and so intellectual, but it is nervous system somatic work to be comfortable enough and safe enough to say what I need to say about God or faith or my emotional needs or my sexual needs, right? And so I think that is so powerful that you brought that up.
I'm going to take us into growth. A licensed and family therapist in Dallas, Texas, her name is Liz Higgins, was interviewed and quoted as saying, "There's a mentality in our world today that if something's not working for you, get rid of it. But conflicts in marriages and relationships are opportunities to grow." Please help us understand from your professional and your personal experiences what she's referring to as growing. In what ways have you seen your clients grow more into themselves and their partner as a result of committing to working through the conflicts?
So I think this is actually piggybacks really beautifully off of what Erin was just saying, is that ultimately, as human beings, there is a strive for connection from our nervous system. We need to feel attached, right? That starts with us as babies, feeling attached to our caregivers. And is there a sense of safety that gets replicated in our relationships, whether it be close, intimate relationships with friends, and definitely with our life partners if we choose to have one. So really thinking about growth. We all have wounds in our history, and they're held in our bodies, they're held in our nervous systems. It's what impacts us as clamming up, opening up, shutting down. And so really thinking about vulnerability time and time again. And if that is important for you physically or emotionally, if there is safety in that relationship, you will be able to grow. And so ultimately, we all have different value systems of what we need in relationships, but it all is going to come from that place of feeling attached and feeling safe, which then makes our bodies feel calmer, which makes us feel more connected. So that's what I would definitely say is the most important thing, is that sense of safety, which will allow there to be growth, and growth looking like change and evolution and challenging myself and challenging my partner, because I have their best interests at heart.
Yeah, I think this also ties back into something that was mentioned much earlier in this conversation, which is that I think within this world of social media and like increasingly divisive dialogues, I think it's very easy to just be like, well, this isn't working, so I can go out and get just something new. Like there's always someone else around the corner. I see a lot of my, girlfriends who are dating of just like, guy says one wrong thing on a date and it's like, nah, ghost, move on to the next one. There's no responsibility or accountability. And I think to try and just like confront something that's difficult. And I mean, I think we can see that on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram. I can just unfollow, I can just block, I can just mute. Like I don't have to interact with something that makes me uncomfortable if I don't want to. But obviously within a long-term partnership, within a marriage, right? Again, you're making this commitment, I think, to do that work. And I think growing is not just even growing within a partnership, but it is, as Veronica and Erin have said too, like within yourself, doing the work to recognize what about this is activating me. How do I need to push myself to sit with this discomfort? Because I think in general, beyond individual relationships, that's a skill that we're kind of losing the nuance and the capacity to do, is to sit with that discomfort and to confront it. And so I do think that, again, the commitment to communication, the commitment to carving out the time, I think it's easier than ever too to just check out. I'm just going to binge Netflix. I'm just going to scroll on my phone. I'm just going to we can sit in the same room and not ever really have to talk to each other if we don't want to. Because there's always something else to see or do or distract. And I think making that commitment to not look away from the conflict and to not get sucked into a TikTok binge or whatever it is that makes just like wasting hours of our time so easy in the day-to-day is really a way of making sure that you're able to work through these conflicts and not look away from it.
I love everything you just said. One thing I just thought of along those lines, just again, repeating again, everything you said about making a commitment to be willing to grow, and that hurts and that's uncomfortable. And like that, back to the question earlier about sort of the commitment we make when we join into a marriage. But I also see a value in having people around you and community around you to support you in those conversations, right? Because sometimes we don't hold each other accountable in a marriage, but it is always helpful to have a therapist or a voice or a mentor or even just a friend that doesn't have to know all the intimacies of your marriage, but that can help either call you out or support you in areas where we tend to disengage and not connect or choose those easy outs like you just talked about, Maris. And so I see a lot of value in like supportive communities to be able to encourage someone back into that uncomfortable, vulnerable willingness to grow that sometimes is hard to do with our spouse on our own, but might be easier if we had someone nudging us along the way as well.
As far as growth, I think it's also important that we work through those conflicts and not in front of your kids, number one. Like work through that in the privacy of your own space without them having to be involved. And then also helping your children learn those skills of working through conflicts, because that's going to transfer later as they're adults to be able to face conflict and to learn from conflict. And then one thing that I really want to say is never go to your friends talking trash about your spouse and what they did, because when you reconcile that, now your friends are still mad at your spouse, and that causes even more conflict, drama, and who wants that?
Great point. And I think what's also important to mention here is that every relationship, regardless of how much you care and love each other, you're going to go through difficult periods of conflict and dissatisfaction. Sometimes, though, the differences and the conflict can feel overwhelming. So surrounding this, how can couples tell when the conflict is irreparable and it's time to let go?
I don't know that this is an inclusive answer to everything, but I think one of the core components happens in terms of, am I safe? And that feels like a given, but I think it's not said enough culturally. And then I think it has to do with that Gottman research around 69% of the relationship problems I have are unsolvable, and it becomes around management. And is this out of alignment with my value system, my integrity? And I love Veronica talking about doing values work with relationships, because I think that's where rift comes. In my work, what I see is rift comes, or decision to end or quit comes, because I don't have the tools within me to navigate how this discomfort makes me feel, versus this is out of alignment with who I am as a human.
Yeah, I would agree. I think it's, safety, emotional safety and physical safety is I can be open and vulnerable with my body, with my heart, with my mind, with my thoughts is crucial. And that is the most important. So thank you for saying that, Erin. In terms of, couples, they loop, right? They loop in patterns. And so it's really important at a certain point to bring somebody else in, a trained professional who's trained as a couples counselor, who can help you observe these patterns. And again, that zoom out where we're not just in this looping and we're just, replicating these patterns that are taking us nowhere, but having more awareness of, there we go again. So I think it's really important at a certain point to bring a trained couples therapy professional, whether it be Gottman trained, like Erin was referencing. Emotionally focused therapy, EFT, is another really wonderful approach that a lot of couples therapists are trained in. I think at a certain point, you just know we don't have the skill set to navigate this. Will that mean we will save this marriage? To be determined, but let's not rely on just our skill set here. So I think it is really important to eventually bring that in if there's willingness. And I do ultimately think in terms of staying in or out, to me, it does come back to values. What do I want out of my life? And for each of us listening, that's going to be very, very different. And thinking, really zooming out and thinking, is this aligned with where I want to head? Is this person part of that for me? Maybe it still is, and you have to find each other again, which can happen, and with some hard work. Or I've changed and I'm seeing something different that I didn't pick up on early on, or they've changed, and it's not worth the effort because you're seeing something glaringly at that point. But ultimately, I think couples need to bring somebody in because you're just so in the dance, that emotional dance, that you've got to be able to step out and see it. And odds are we just don't have the training. Even us as therapists, we need our own therapists. We need our own couples therapists, right? We get pulled into it as well, even though we quote unquote know about it. So it is really important to sort of bring in reinforcements there.
This is something that has just been so powerful in my life that I want to share. Because when you look at your question about conflict, or even your last question about like a piece of wisdom that you would offer to somebody, I think our ability to be in relationship with other people is directly proportional to our ability to love ourselves. And we have a self-worth crisis in our society, right? We don't teach worthiness. It is not accessible. It is not modeled. And so I love this analogy about learning to drive a car. Our kiddos from birth are exposed to the rules of the road, right? Why do I drive at the green light? Why do I stop at the red light? And they have 15 years of absorption of backseat driving before they even get into a classroom and learn about the rules of the road. And then they practice for months and months and hours and hours and hours. And then they're given a temporary permit, right? And then we give them, they have to take a test, and then they can have the ability to drive a car. But yet we throw people into intimate relationships, long-term partnerships with no exposure to the tools and the abilities that I need to do this well, right? Whether that's structurally in society or it's left to whatever my home environment looks like and the skills that I learn there. And so I just think this perspective of, oh yeah, as parents, what am I letting my children observe from me, and how am I getting them exposed to the rules of the road that is rooted in love, that will give them a head start when they enter in intimate relationships? I was like, well, duh, that seems so straightforward. So I just have to share it because it changed my life, and hopefully it does others as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing that. On behalf of Cindy and myself, we want to thank each of our expert panelists so much for joining us today. Marriage and intimacy are an important topic in today's increasingly conflict-ridden world, and we appreciate each of you taking the time to come together, discuss this issue, and share your own unique thoughts and perspectives. Be sure to check out herhealthcollective.com for more great content from each of our expert panelists throughout the rest of the year.
Thank you so much. I always look forward to our roundtable discussions with our expert panelists. They offer so many valuable insights and perspectives based on their area of focus. In our first episode of the roundtable, we covered the contributing factors leading to relationship struggles, how the institution of marriage and its meaning has shifted over the years, and the top 3 daily practices for maintaining a strong union with your partner. If you haven't heard that episode, we'd highly encourage you to check it out. Within this episode, we discussed the various types of intimacy, working through conflicts, and growth in reference to individuals growing more into themselves and their partner as a result of committing to work through relationship struggles. Here are our 3 takeaways from this episode of our expert roundtable. Number 1, there are 4 different types of intimacy that come into play: emotional, physical, mental or intellectual, and spiritual. A lot of people think of intimacy as only the physical component, and they're either unaware or neglect the other forms of intimacy. The experts agreed that there is no one type of intimacy that is more important than another. Every relationship is different, and every person has different needs. Each person needs to determine what will make them feel fulfilled within the relationship and communicate those needs to their partner. It's important to remain aware of your partner's needs while feeling confident that they are holding awareness of your needs. Number 2, as human beings, we have a need to feel connection with others, and this begins at birth. Throughout a person's lifetime, not only do we grow in size, but we also grow in the number of experiences we have, our wisdom and knowledge of the world around us grows, and we also grow in emotional intelligence. This growth happens within ourselves, and it also grows in our relationships with others. The experts mentioned that we all have different value systems of what we need in relationships. Choosing to be in a long-term relationship or marriage is actively choosing and making a commitment that you are willing to evolve in your growth with another person. The evolution we experience when sharing life with another person can periodically be uncomfortable. A skill set that we are losing the capacity to do in our fast-paced, modernized culture is sitting with discomfort, confronting it, and working through the struggle. Number 3, there are times when conflict can seem overwhelming and irreparable. Many times couples lack the ability to navigate how discomfort within the relationship makes them feel. They struggle to effectively communicate when something is out of alignment with their values and integrity. And there are times in relationships when situations may be beyond the couple's skill set to navigate. If there is willingness to do so, this is the time when it's really important to bring in a professional. Making the decision to end a relationship does come back to values. acknowledging what each person wants, and zooming out to look at the larger picture of life. Is this aligned with where I want to head? Is this person part of that picture? It's possible that the answer to these questions are yes, and you have to find each other again, which can happen with some hard work. Or perhaps the answers are no, and you both feel you've changed. Perhaps you're seeing something different that you didn't pick up on early in the relationship, or they've changed and it's just not worth the effort. Another crucial piece of working through problems or deciding to end a relationship is the topic of safety. Is there emotional safety and physical safety? Can you be open and vulnerable with your body, with your heart, with your mind, and with your thoughts? These are all questions to consider.
High five, friend. We've enjoyed hanging out with you. Follow us so you're the first to know when we drop a new episode.
If you've enjoyed your time with us, let us know by leaving a review. We always love hearing from you. Until next time, stay true to you.